Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of ShowMeFootball.com, and we are going to review what just happened against Mizzou and Georgia tonight at Faroe. Mizzou falls to the Bulldogs 26-22 in a hard-fought game, and you know what? Georgia was the #1 team in the country coming into this game. You heard it on the broadcast. Mizzou had never beaten the AP #1 team in the nation, and they had them on the ropes for most of the night. And we're going to talk about everything that happened and what my thoughts are after that game. First of all, you have to applaud this team for the way they came out and played tonight, for the effort that they gave tonight after what happened last week against Auburn. That was a horrible game that no one wanted to be a part of. It was a terrible way to lose. And after that game, they could have easily rolled over. They could have mailed it in for this season. They could have mentally checked out. Last week there was this thing about Luther Burden's Instagram and how he's going to leave, and they made a whole big deal out of it for nothing. And then Luther Burden had to come out and tweet something. It's just like the vibes around the team were not great. But if there's one thing, among all the complaints about Eli Drinkwitz, there's one thing about Eli Drinkwitz's teams that is true. And that is his teams do not give up. They haven't given up. I haven't seen it happen. There's been a lot of times throughout his first few years here where Mizzou easily could have given up on him and the locker room could have tuned him out. But guess what? He had those guys fighting tonight against the #1 team in the country. And look, I get it. They came close, but they couldn't close it out, which, we all expected. And people are going to find things to complain about. It's honestly, I understand why people will be frustrated. There's things in this game to be frustrated about, and I will talk about them. But I don't know, man. It's just strange to me how after going toe-to-toe with the #1 team in the country, after a lot of people gave up on this season, the first thing fans want to do is bitch about the coach and bitch about the team. For the second straight week now, in my opinion, Eli Drinkwitz has called a hell of a game. And in the Auburn game, the players just didn't execute, and it was what it was. Your All-American kicker has to make that kick, from 26 yards out, and Nate Pete has to hold on to that ball running to the end zone in overtime. And then, look, tonight, Drinkwitz called a great game, I thought. A lot of people will still complain about the play calling, and there were a couple drives tonight that I have questions about. But all in all, Drinkwitz set this team up to win. And in the end, they just didn't have that one last punch that they needed. It's clear they're still just a few guys short of really winning a game like this, and it also hurts when the guys that were going to be the reason you won tonight, had they won, slowly starting to go down. Chris Abrams-Drain got injured. We didn't see him much in the second half. Dominic Lovett, their leading receiver and someone who was cooking the Georgia defense before he got hurt, he had that ankle injury and wasn't the same for the rest of the night, and those were unfortunate. A couple back-breaking penalties as well changed this game, including the one on Mitchell Walters in the second half that brought Mizzou back on a play that would have been a first down. They later had to punt. And then the false start on what was about the goal line after Cody Schrader's 60-plus yard run. That should have been a touchdown, but instead Mizzou had to go for the kick and only got 3 points out of that. So, yeah, look, there were points in this game to be frustrated about, but again, overall, I thought Eli Drinkwitz called a fantastic game, and there are plays that he called, the slow developing east and west stuff that people complain about. And the reality is, with this offense, you have to try stuff like that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But as we saw, especially on that last drive, that last offensive drive where Mizzou went with 3 straight passes, Brady Cook is a very limited quarterback. He was throwing passes 8 to 10 yards above guys' heads, and he doesn't place a very catchable ball, or at least he didn't tonight. And that's something we've seen a lot from him this season, is that he just can't put the ball where he needs to put it. We know that Mizzou's offense still lacks the horses up front as well, and they tend to be overmatched a lot. Tonight, they tried everything they could to mask that. And at a certain point, there's nothing more that you can do. There's no play that Drinkwitz can call that would change the result of the game. You can't expect him to make chicken salad out of, chicken shit. The fact that this Mizzou offense was able to put up 22 points on Georgia's defense is a miracle, given what we've seen from them this season. So, yeah, just like any game, there's things to nitpick. There's things you wish would have been done differently. I get it. And, yeah, Mizzou had a chance to win tonight, and it stings just a little bit that they weren't able to pull off the upset because it would have been incredible had they done it. But, look, they gave it their best shot. And, again, people gave up on this team. People gave up on the season after the Auburn game. I'm proud of this team and the effort that they gave tonight, and all Mizzou fans should be. Also, props to Harrison Mevis because I don't know where Mizzou would be without him. And after last week, he definitely needed a performance like this, and he more than made up for it. If Mizzou was going to win this game, again, Mevis would have been probably the MVP of the game, but, one of the heroes that I was referencing earlier, like when I was talking about Dominic Lovett and Chris Abrams-Drain. But Harrison Mevis was an absolute monster tonight, 250-plus yarders, and he hit everything else. And I think we can safely say that the slump for Harrison Mevis is over because he looked like his normal self again tonight, and he played great. Now, as for the defense, they played an amazing game. And as if we needed further proof that this defense is legit. And by the way, Blake Baker, the defensive coordinator, he needs a raise because he's another guy that I don't know where Mizzou would be without because he was dialing up all sorts of different pressure and different looks against Georgia tonight. And these guys gave Georgia absolutely everything they had. And this Georgia offense is no slouch. Stetson Bennett, he's had his ups and downs, but he's a national championship winning quarterback. Georgia's offense has Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington, one of the most feared tight end duos in all of college football. We also know Georgia can run the ball very well. That's kind of been their identity over the last several years with Kirby Smart is running the ball. They've kind of added in passing a little bit more to their offense, but again, their roots are running the ball, and Missouri's run defense did really well tonight. The defensive line did really well tonight. The entire defensive line stepped up, as well as the linebackers, Damian Wilson, who was filling in for Chad Bailey tonight in his first career start. He looked incredible. The only misstep I noticed from him was play on the goal line on one of Georgia's touchdowns where he just failed to wrap up the guy, and Georgia ended up getting a touchdown, but I don't think it ultimately would have mattered. But he looked great in Chad Bailey's absence, and he was in there on those blitzes too. Since Blake Baker has become the DC, Mizzou has blitzed their linebackers a lot, which I like. Tyron Hopper, that guy is all over the field in every single game. Forced a fumble tonight on Georgia on one of their big runs, what would have been a big run, just comes in and punches that ball out. He was also getting some pressure tonight himself. He's just everywhere. Big game from Chris Abrams-Drain before he got hurt. Ennis Rakestraw made some good plays tonight. He did get called for what I thought was a ticky-tack. I want to say it was a holding call in the red zone. I thought he played well besides that, though. Joseph Charleston, the Clemson transfer, he was laying the wood tonight. These guys, they play with heart. I love this Mizzou defense. Now, if we could just get the offense to be average to slightly above average, this Mizzou team, this season is not over. I think that's the important takeaway after this game tonight is that this game showed that there is not a game on Mizzou's schedule that they can't win. Because if they put out this kind of effort against Florida, they will beat Florida. They can beat Tennessee with this effort. They can beat South Carolina. They can beat Vandy. There is not a game left on their schedule that they can't win. They're not good enough. Because what I saw from them tonight, they almost beat Georgia, and they probably should have beat Georgia, if we're being honest. If not for a couple back-breaking penalties and a couple other things that should have went Mizzou's way. It's frustrating we couldn't get this type of effort from them, this type of performance from them against K-State or against Auburn, because that type of performance would have beaten K-State or Auburn, both of them. And now we're seeing, though, that they are capable of playing this type of game. I think most people before this weekend thought, including myself, I'll be honest, I thought Georgia was going to boat race us, as always. But this team fought their ass off. And I believe in Eli Drinkwitz. I believe in this program. And I know they won't play as well as they did today for the rest of the season. But as I said in my previous videos after some of the other games, I don't think they'll play that bad for the rest of the season. Well, they obviously didn't because they put on a hell of a performance tonight against Georgia. Guys, there's things to be optimistic about with this football team. I don't know if Mizzou will be bowl eligible this year. I don't know how the rest of the season is going to go. But This game tonight was important because it shows you that Drinkwitz can get this thing moving in the right direction, because he just played closer. He just played Georgia closer than any Mizzou coach has in a long time. Heck, he played Georgia closer really than anyone has all season. And I know some people aren't big on moral victories and they don't really care what I have to say about that. But you know what? I'm proud of this football team, okay? Because again, one more time, people left this team for dead after the Auburn game. And tonight, they showed that they are still in this. You know, Drink has rallied the troops. This locker room is not tuning him out. There's things to like about this team. The offense, albeit still isn't great, they showed some progress tonight. And Brady Cook showed that he can make some plays. We just need him to make those plays a little bit more often. And we got to keep getting the ball to our playmakers and Luther Burden and Dominic Lovett, and keep trying with that running game, because Nate Pete and Cody Schrader, they've shown us they can break off those long runs. I just hope after tonight's game, Mizzou can show some consistency, because we could have used that performance earlier in the season. And I think a fair criticism of Drink is, last year, we could have won a lot more games had the defense not been as horrible as it was for the first half of the season. And then they turned it on in the second half and propelled themselves to a bowl appearance. I don't know if they can quite do that because of the hole that they already dug themselves in at the beginning of the year. But they can still show to be a competent team, grab some SEC wins, give some fans hope going into next year, and show some progress. And then they can give you hope that the offense will improve next year. We saw the defense make their strides and improve, and then it's like, well, now the offense isn't good. And so now they need to go back, take a look at some positions that could use some improving, hit the transfer portal, and then hopefully next year is when we'll start to see those results on the field that everyone has wanted to see from Drinkwitz, because we have seen that he can recruit really well. People are starting to want to see results, and I've always push back on fan expectations, saying, hey guys, it's still only year 3, and I think Eli kind of overachieved a little bit, at least in year 1, and so people had some unrealistic expectations. Now, is it fair for people to ask Mizzou not to be as embarrassing as they were to start this season? Yeah, of course, and those games were not ideal, but this year was never going to be the judgment year. I think the judgment year is going to be next year, when we're probably going to get to see Sam Horn, and that'll be at least, a full cycle now with Drinkwitz. He'll have several years of roster turnover at that point. It'll be fair to expect some results then, to see some progress. You go back to Gary Pinkel, he didn't even have a winning season until his 4th year. People wanted to run him out of town. And here we have Drinkwitz, who is recruiting unlike any other coach has in Mizzou history. I say, give him some time. He still needs more time. I say give him more time. Get these recruits in here, and let's see what he can do, okay? And if worst comes to worst, next year he doesn't improve and he has to get fired, then okay, fine. But at least he'll be leaving the roster in a good position for the next coach. So Drinkwitz isn't going to get fired this year. He was never getting fired this year. Anyone calling for him to be fired is being ridiculous, especially after tonight, because I've emphasized this theme tonight. Drinkwitz's teams don't quit. Drinkwitz had those guys fighting their ass off tonight. All in all, I'm proud of this football team, the way they performed tonight. It sucks that they couldn't pull off the upset, because that would have been awesome. But you know what? This game gave reason for optimism, and it kind of made, I think, a lot of us go, you know what? Mizzou can still win some games, because at one point I think we all thought, hey, this season might not be very good at all. But Mizzou can still win some games, guys. They got to come out with that same fire next week against Florida, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, guys, those are my thoughts on tonight's game, but I definitely want to hear from you and kind of take the fan base's temperature again, see what you guys are feeling after that one. But yeah, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Mizzou fans can find this, and make sure you check out my work on showmefootball.com. And I will see you all in the next one. MIZ.